We're back, people! And today I have a question for you. Why do you or your team struggle to turn your ideas into strong thought leadership?
So, if your thinking has evolved, but your thought leadership still sounds like an earlier version of you, this is a more common problem than people actually realize.
And today we're going to talk about why this happens and what it actually means when it's time to grow your business for good. This is the Grow Your Business for Good show. We're your hosts. I'm Shannon Hernandez.
And I'm Amy Hager.
This show explores what happens when a business outgrows its message and what it takes to rebuild messaging systems that carry the full depth of your work.
Each episode breaks down how messaging shapes trust, authority, and decision making, and why many established businesses find themselves explaining more while being understood less. We focus on the strategic shifts founders and leadership teams need to make when clarity alone isn't enough, so their expertise comes through without oversimplifying it. Thought leadership scales when insights are translated into shared language and structure. And that means with your team. It just doesn't also, we talk so much about talking outward and attracting ideal clients, but I really want to flow in to team today. And, there's a lot of breakdowns when this usually happens. And Shannon, where do you think one of the most common breakdowns are that we see with our clients?
Well, I think for any of us who are consultants, strategists, speakers, or trainers, right? Those of us who need to use our brain and our IP to really translate into expertise and solutions and sales. I know for myself, one of the biggest problems we've always had in this brand is me offloading copy to a copywriter, right? Or giving a piece of copy that I have approved to someone on the team to repurpose for another format. And there's a reason, y'all, that this happens. All right. And there's a reason the breakdown happens. And we're going to talk about that today. Okay. So most of us think that our thinking is really clear. Have you ever thought that? Have you ever thought your thinking is really clear and that your team gets it? And then all of a sudden you get something back and you're like, what the actual heck? I have no idea where this went from what I was saying on point A and they took it to point F, right? So, why does this happen? Well, there's a few things going on. Most of our insights as the experts helping people with our IP, most of those insights live in us recognizing patterns over time, right? So, for example, I have been trying to launch something new. It has been slow as shit, y'all. Like painfully slow. And I just realized, all right, there's a pattern here, and there's something that I have missed somewhere in this messaging and positioning. And lo and behold, one day this week at 2 a.m., the universe woke me up and said, Shannon, quit using the word founder. And I was like, thank you, universe. Thank you. But do you know what? That's because I was seeing the pattern of why isn't this converting? Why isn't this converting? Why isn't this converting? The
Mhm.
other thing that happened a week prior was I was having a conversation with Minette, who I brainstorm with, and she's like, Shannon, I can't think of one founder to send to this thing.
Yeah,
And I was like, huh? But then I realized, oh my God, it's because I'm using the wrong word,
right.
right? And so this thought leadership scaling gets very nuanced. And y'all, it is the difference between a launch that I have a few people signed up for versus had I figured this out earlier, a launch that I think I'd have 20, 30, or 40 people signed up for.
Yeah.
But guess what? I get to fix it.
Exactly, right? It's all fixable. And I think that we've gone through this cycle before actually about using a word that we view our clients as founders or maybe CEOs, but they don't see it in themselves. And so therefore when they're reading our copy, they're like, "Oh, this I don't know what a founder is." Or I mean like Manette knows our messaging inside and out. And if it's hard for her to think of someone to refer because she's one of our strongest collaborators, then we know something must be off. And so I think also when you find that the messaging is off, go talk to the people who know you about it and
Mm.
see what they think and see what they're seeing in your messaging. And it could lead to that clue. And then sometimes it is, universe wakes you up at 2 a.m. and says, "Hey, stop using that word."
And I was so grateful. And then I have to tell the rest of the story. So I grabbed
Go
my
for it.
phone and I text Manette. Now, y'all, I'm in Valencia, Spain now. If you've missed the news flash, I have moved to Europe. And so she was still awake because she's on mountain time. And I said, "Oh my God, Manette, how's this sound? This 3-day challenge is for consultants, strategists, trainers, and speakers whose body of work has deepened and they no longer have the language and the messaging to describe it." And she's like, "Brilliant. I could
Oh,
send you five
yeah.
people." And I was
Right.
like, "Oh,
And of course, you didn't go back to bed.
I did not." You know what I
Yeah.
did, Amy? Let me ask
Yeah.
you, what do you think? What do you think I did?
Woke up our lovely website goddess and asked her to update the website.
Oh my God, that would be my wife. Y'all, I did not wake up the Sleeping Beauty. Okay. But what I did is I pulled every copy
Yeah,
that
that you
was
could update.
going to come out to
Yeah.
update. Um, and, you know, maybe we're going to just take this conversation a little off rails today and off script, and I'm okay with that. Because what I've learned in this last week, right, of holy shit, one word screwed it up, was no, that actually isn't the whole story because we have repositioned who we are in the marketplace. We
Right.
have redone all of our messaging structure, not the words, not the ideas, but the structure and the system of what holds our messaging here at Joyful Business Revolution. We have created graphics. We have created workbooks. We have created a whole bunch of new stuff. I walk into a recording studio tomorrow in Valencia to record 8 videos for the launch of When Your Work Outgrows Your Message. So it's easy for me as the founder or the consultant or the strategist to be
Mhm.
like, "Oh man, I have a failed launch." But no, what I did is I got really, really clear and convicted in the process. And we are going to be able to use this content for years and years to come. So,
Right.
Amy, I'm patting myself on the back today.
Nice. I'm gonna take it. And again, this is a journey. This is a process. We get clearer through being curious and in conversations and not judging ourselves. And I think, I want to tell another story just so that way we can have something relatable that isn't about messaging and about launching. I was working with a client this week, and she has a team member who does all their social media posting for them. And we have never had discounts as part of their strategy, but all of a sudden, this team member started to talk about discounts on social media. And she also had shared with me that sometimes her staff will give a discount to a client. And she's like, "I just have a no discount policy." And I was like, "Well, does your team actually know that?" She's like, "Well, I've told them that." I was like, "But why do you have a no discount policy?" And it took a couple times of going back and forth and being curious and in conversation for her to really realize she's never explained to the team why there is a no discount policy. She encourages gifts and bonuses and things along those lines. But she's never really explained that she feels like when you offer a discount, it really devalues the work that her and her team are doing. She thinks her team is one of the best out there. I think they're one of the best out there. So they should be getting paid the price. But also, she's never talked about how she's come up with her pricing to her team. So they don't even know. They just know that they got this number that they're supposed to charge for this thing. And there's no true meaning to it. And
Mm.
so we've planned for her next staff or team meeting to talk about pricing, to talk about why discounts don't work for that brand, and how they can honor and celebrate those clients who are bringing repeat business, or those clients that maybe they missed the deadline by a few days and they're behind because the work was harder or was different than what they thought when they did their original assessment. That happens often, right? And so it was an interesting conversation to really go through with her to unpack her larger why. And then if this larger why was actually ever communicated to her team. And I think we pointed out why we're seeing this pattern where her team may think they can give a discount or may think that, um, you know, a group discount or something like that could happen. So it was a really interesting thing to experience this week. And I'm curious to see as we start uncovering more of why she's made these decisions and share them with her team, how the team can get on board and I'm going to say perform better than what they actually are. And team isn't just the staff that work for you. It's the consultants or vendors that you've hired as well. And so there's a big gap and she thinks her team gets it, but they actually don't. And it's interesting to be on that side of talking CEO to CEO and asking those questions of her so that she can see those gaps and patterns in her thought process and her communications.
Yeah. So what Amy's hitting on here is that this is another place we see a breakdown in the message that we're trying to pass off, right? And, this is a hard nut to crack, y'all. And I'm going to say why is because we have the experience as the consultant, as the strategist, as the owner who's built the business from the ground up. Like it is our lived experience that we fall back on when we're shaky, when we're confident, when we need to like revisit what the hell did Shannon screw up this time, right? And when we pass this our ideas off to go get implemented by either a copywriter, a team member, a social media strategist, or whoever, we often lose that nuance of how we speak about our topics, what our point of view is, and the judgment we have about our industry or our niche or in our market. And so, this is why we need to talk next about why our good ideas don't survive translation. And what the
Mm-hmm.
heck do we do about it, right? So, Amy, why do you think even though like I can say to you, I mean, this happened to us recently, right? And I was frustrated, and I'm sure I don't know if you were frustrated because you hide your feelings, your emotions better than I do. I'm like, why does Amy think this 3-day challenge is the same thing we did January 21st? It is different content.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
what happened, Amy?
Well, I think again, it lives in your brain. And this is why we work so well together. I know you're going to develop brilliant curriculum for us. And I also can be kind of toss something very last minute and figure out how to teach it. And so I'm going to let you do you. And you come to me when you have questions, when things don't feel right or things don't feel clear, or you're kind of thinking through something and how can we do that differently? And so when I'm involved in the process and ask the questions when you need them, like we collaborate, right? But otherwise, we know like you're really great at curriculum and this is why you do what you do. And so there are times where I'm just completely left in the dark, but I also operate okay in that space.
Mhm.
And so, when I say something and Shannon's like, where does Amy think of that? It is because I haven't seen the workbook. I don't see the drafts. I didn't see this before it went to the designer and I opened it yesterday and was like, what magic is this? And I, could easily pick out the sections that I was going to teach because again, we haven't completely changed everything. There is still very deep rooted, our methodology and what we believe in and how we believe you can come to clarity to really communicate. Those are still there. It's the structure of which we're kind of teaching it right now that has shifted a little bit. And so I pulled out the sections that I'm super duper comfortable with. And it took me like literally 30 seconds as I was scrolling through, like, oh, this is my piece, this is my piece, this is my piece. And there's pieces that Shannon's going to have to teach because the way she's redesigned this curriculum, I still don't really wrap my head around it as well. And so we want the better of the two of us to teach it. And so I think it really is that difference in the role when you're the leader of a team and when you're developing the thought leadership and developing the curriculum, because you're working on it so deeply, you understand it inside and out. And that may never have been communicated out to the team in a way that really lands well for them to really wrap their head around it. And so I think, when this happens for us, I don't make Shannon wrong for it. I don't think she makes me wrong for it. Sometimes she's like, how does Amy not know this? But again, I don't live in her head. I'm not in the day in and day out of what she's working on because I'm over here talking to our clients, doing their one-on-one sessions, doing our sales conversations, and we come together and collaborate on common language that we're hearing. So I think it is interesting to make sure that when you do have situations like this, is to one, not hold judgment or resentment against the other person on your team, but really pause for a second, ask yourself and be like, why is it that I think they should know this? Or why is it that I think they should, whatever assumption or thing that you're thinking that they should know or believe or see or do, why do you think that has happened? Where can the breakdown maybe be? And maybe it's not even a breakdown, it just isn't the right point in the journey of this curriculum for Amy to really know and really understand what's going on because it's still early in development.
Yeah. And I think, Amy, I appreciate one, your grace and patience because y'all, I create at the fucking speed of light.
Oh yeah, no one can keep up with you. And I tell everybody this. Like no one can keep up with Shannon Hernandez creation ability. I don't understand how she does it. It's some voodoo magic. But no one can keep up with this.
No, today I went to my book club this morning
Mhm.
at a beautiful garden in Toria Park in Valencia, Spain. And the facilitator looked at me and she goes, I am such a sloth compared to you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you making yourself wrong for it? And she's like, no, but you're like a gazelle. And I said, one year my animal energy was sloth, just so that I could slow down a little bit. But what does this have to do with ideas not surviving translation? Well, Amy just very clearly explained what I want to recap. The ability, the capability for Amy to understand, the issue is not her capability to understand. What Amy got was what Shannon gave her, but what lived in a Google Doc was, holy shit, I spent a whole week thinking about this simple recognition funnel that I'm
Mhm.
going to teach. Okay, so I got that done and I got that graphic developed from the designer, right? Then I put a brand new slide deck together based on the sales page and I got that done. And um, then I was like, oh, it's time for a workbook. Well, of course, when I finally get to Amy and be like, hey, this is what we're doing next week, she's probably has whiplash because she's probably like, what the hell? But you just heard her reasoning. This is one of the ways that we complement each other so well. I was carrying the structure of the entire experience through my brain, Google Docs, graphic design, workbook, curriculum development, sales page, email marketing, social media marketing. Amy doesn't need to know all that. That is actually not Amy's job here, right? But what Shannon has to remember, and what I need all of you brilliant founders and consultants and strategists and trainers to remember is if you're a creator and you're creating your IP and your frameworks, which you are because that's how you get paid. Um, this is where the team can get lost in translation. And
Right.
so, what is ours to do? What do we need to do so that we have this shared language? ideas do not get oversimplified and messages flatten out and lose their sophistication because someone else is creating it, right? And we're going to talk about that. What is yours to do here in a moment? But first, all of this is diluting our thought leadership if we're not careful, right? And there's a cost to that. And this is the number one thing I have to be so careful of as a fast, sharp creator in this brand. If I move faster than the market or my audience is ready, they do not even know what has hit them. They get fragments of ideas. They don't see the shift coming on. If I decide to go a little safer in my messaging, I might decide to write more generic versions so that they can keep up. That's what flattens the language,
Yeah.
right? Or God forbid you decide to put your brilliance in AI or hurry through it, and what you get back is nothing that you actually are proud of or a fully developed idea.
Yeah.
And so over time, if we're not careful, our authority quietly erodes. We
Mhm.
feel misrepresented in our ideas and our thought leadership because it actually feels watered down instead of as robust as we're so excited about presenting to the world. And our teams are like, well, I don't even know what good enough looks like anymore because stuff is being created kind of in this silo and then handed off, right?
Right.
So, Amy, what actually allows our insight to scale over time? Because that's really what people would want to know after listening to these stories.
Right. And I think one of the key thing is, we kicked off with that language needs to be defined. And yes, the frameworks need to be shared when they're ready to be shared, right? We don't want to double the work. I don't want to be in the messy middle with Shannon creating this because then I'll take it and run with it. Like when you give me what we're ready to roll with, I'm going with it, right? So you want to make sure that you're timing when you're ready to actually share those ideas. Or if it's an idea that you're sharing that you need to get clarity on, make sure that that's clear when you're talking to your team. And I think that when we get the language right, and usually that happens like internally when we do our own type of intensive with ourselves, and especially when we work with our clients and do a messaging intensive, it really helps the team have a brand messaging playbooks to reference. So that way you can create independently and come together and have a product that isn't massively siloed and looks like it was built in a different language. I've seen that happen a lot. And that way, the depth of the body of work and the best ideas and the best methodologies that you use are not lost. And so, having that common playbook so that everybody can turn to it. And, when I talked about the discount situation, we didn't really have that in the playbook. Now we're adding that language in there because that's a bigger piece of actually why they do business the way they do, so that the rest of the team, so that the social media person who's creating the graphics really understands that. And so the playbook isn't, something that just sits on a shelf and it's your guide that lives there forever. It's going to change, grow, and adjust with you. But to have it is absolute gold for your team.
Yeah, and I just want to relate because many of you, I'm sure, are like, oh, I have a playbook. What you
Mhm.
probably have is a branding playbook,
Mhm.
right? It's our colors, our logos, our fonts, what kind of pictures we use. And I woke up one day a few years ago and I thought, why don't people have a brand messaging playbook?
Yeah.
And it was a game changer. We rolled out a service, and it is one of my most fun things to fulfill with our clients, right? Because when you have a messaging playbook that you can reference or your team can reference, um, and if you don't have a team that you can reference, great ideas will not fail. They will not get diluted. And this isn't about a personal gap in your thought leadership. It's about making sure your ideas can translate across the brand as it evolves and across teams, across VAs, whoever it is that's helping you do your work. Even I'd say in your masterminds and in your coaching,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? Because we can get 52 ideas in 1 second. But let me tell you, I opened that brand playbook and I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing right here. I'm not jumping ship yet, right? So that shared language is what preserves our insight and our expertise and our authority. So we hope you've loved this episode. And I do want to say I'm hanging out a lot more on LinkedIn these days. So if you want to ping me over on LinkedIn after you listen, I'd love to hear from you there. And if you haven't grabbed our profit driven messaging ecosystem guide yet, I'm going to highly recommend that you go ahead and grab that guide. It's going to help you bring coherence and structure back to your body of work and your thought leadership. And you can grab that at joyfulbusinessrevolution.com, profit/profit messaging.
All right. Well, until next time, you all have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Adios.
Thank you for listening to Grow Your Business for Good. This show is a part of our work at the Joyful Business Revolution, where we help founders and leadership teams rebuild messaging systems when their work has outgrown their message. If you're explaining too much and people still don't fully understand the value of your work, you can explore more at joyfulbusinessrevolution.com.
Until next time, remember this: when your messaging system is aligned, sales conversations shorten and your expertise comes through clearly.